Miles Grayson, 29, had it made, an accountant at Harper & Stone, a top-tier firm in Denver, pulling six figures after years of late nights and CPA exams. His office overlooked the Rockies, his desk neat with client files, trust built on numbers, his pride. November 2019, that shattered. Claire Donovan, his polished boss, called him in sharp suit, sharper glare. $500,000 gone. Your accounts, Miles. He blinked, stunned, his files, his logins, but not his hands. I didn't, he started. She cut him. Evidence says you did. IT pulled logs, his ID, late-night transfers to an offshore shell. Forged, he swore, but security hauled him out, badge stripped, colleagues staring. Claire's voice echoed, you're done, her pity fake, he'd later see. Cops came, embezzlement, felony weight, but no charges stuck. Evidence sloppy, they said. Didn't matter, Harper fired him, blacklisted him. Thief stuck, job offers dried, his savings bled on rent, ramen, shame. Friends ghosted, family doubted, how'd you miss it? His dad asked, pained. He trusted Claire, mentored him, drinks after audits, her laugh warm. Now, her signature on his termination burned, betrayal, not error. He crashed at a studio, $600 a month, walls thin, hope thinner. Job hunts flopped, background check fail, his resume trashed. Nights, he'd pore over old files, copies he'd kept, numbers off, but no proof. Claire's face flashed, smirking, untouchable, her corner office's grave. He'd been good, precise, honest, yet here, broke, labeled. January 2020, he pawned his watch, $50, a lifeline vowing not defeat, but defiance. She'd framed him, he knew, gut, not fact, her polish hiding rot. He'd dig, rebuild, repay her not with fists, but truth. The studio's cold bit, his breath fogging, but a fire lit Claire's ruin, his rise. He'd lost everything, job, rep, trust, but not grit. That $500,000 wasn't his crime, it was hers, and he'd prove it, no matter years or cost. The Rockies loomed outside, his fight mirrored, slow, steep, but his. Miles clawed through 2020, a ghost of his old self. Fired from Harper & Stone, the $500,000 theft pinned on him. He scraped by temp gigs, data entry, $15 an hour if lucky. Denver's shine dulled, his loft swapped for a studio, mildew on walls, roaches his roommates. Embezzler stuck, background checks killed decent jobs, his CPA license a taunt. He'd email firms, innocent, framed, but silence answered, or worse, not hiring. Savings gone, he sold his car, $2,000, a dented Civic, walking now, boots worn. Friends faded, texts unanswered, pity in their eyes. Rough break, Jake, his old coworker, said once, then ghosted. Family tried, mom sent $100, hang in there. Dad gruff, fight it. He couldn't, lawyers cost, evidence lost, Claire's lie airtight. Nights, he'd sit with his files, spreadsheets, backups, numbers whispering, transfers at 3 a.m., his ID, impossible. He'd been home, asleep, but logs didn't care. Claire's smirk haunted, you're done, her polish a mask he trusted. He took a gig, bookkeeping, shady tax outfit, cash under table. Don't ask, the boss grunted, and Miles didn't. $800 a month, rent met, barely. Shame gnawed. He'd audited millionaires, now he had receipts for crooks. But it sharpened him patterns, tricks, how thieves moved money. Claire's game clicked, offshore shells, her signature subtle, not his. He'd no proof, just math, simmering rage. She'd framed him, lived lush rumors of her new Benz, her Vail condo, while he ate stale bread. March, he pawned his laptop, $75, essentials only, buying a burner phone, a plan brewing. He'd watch, wait, Claire's life, her slip. Jobless nights stretched, TV buzz, neighbors yelling, but he studied. Fraud cases, forensic tricks, his old craft twisted to hunt her. She'd crushed him career, pride, but not will. The studio's bulb flickered, his breath fogged, and he vowed, her throne is revenge. Not fast, not loud, slow, sure, numbers his blade. Miles wasn't the thief, she was, and he'd carve her lie bare, piece by piece, till Denver knew. 2 years ground Miles down, 2021. A blur of temp gigs, rejection emails, his studio a cell. Fired from Harper & Stone for a $500,000 theft he didn't commit. Blacklisted. He survived, barely, on grit and $12 an hour bookkeeping for sketchy firms. Claire, his ex-boss, Thrived, LinkedIn showed her promoted partner, her smile smug in headshots. He'd scroll, fist clenched, her Vail condo, her charity galas, his ruin her ladder. Then, October, a spark. He'd hit a dive bar cheap beer, $3, drowning numbers, when a voice cut through. Miles Grayson? A guy, wiry, 40s, Tom, ex-Harper IT, laid off post-scandal. Heard you got screwed, Tom said, sipping. Miles nodded, wary. Claire pinned it on me. Tom leaned in. She's dirty. Saw her late. Your transfer night. Fiddling servers. Next day, you're toast. Miles' pulse spiked. Proof? No logs, Tom shrugged. But she bragged. Problem solved. I quit. She's poison. Miles walked home. Buzzed. Alive. Tom's tip. A crack in Claire's wall. He'd no hard evidence. Logs wiped. His word trash. But a witness. A thread. Claire framed him. Tom saw her. Her glee. He dug his old files, spreadsheets, backups, cross-checking dates. November 12th, 3 a.m., his crime. He'd been home, pizza box proof, but her hands on servers fit. She'd forged it, his ID, her move. He'd build on this. Slow, sure. Next day, he called Tom. Meet again. Bar, dusk. Tom spilled more. Claire's slick, offshore tricks, shells. She'd laugh. Numbers bend. No smoking gun, but Miles burned her game, his fall. He tipped Tom $20, stay quiet, and plotted. Claire lived high, bins, trips, $500, 000 a seed, not the end. He'd watch LinkedIn, whispers, her life is mapped. The studio's cold bit, but he grinned. 2 years broken, now a hunt. She'd crushed him job, name, but he'd rise, her slip his spark. Miles wasn't done. He'd spark her end, truth his torch. Miles clung to Tom's spark through 2022. 3 years since Claire's frame-up at Harper & Stone cost him everything, job, rep, that $500,000 theft he didn't pull. Temp gigs kept him afloat. Bookkeeping, $15 an hour, shady firms. But Tom's words, she's dirty, lit a fire. January, he hit a flea market, nickel stretched. When he found it, a ledger, leather-bound, $10, stuffed in a box of junk. Inside, scribbles, dates, sums, initials, CD Claire Donovan. His gut screamed, hers. He pored over it, nights in his studio, bulb flickering, coffee cold. November 2019, $500K, offshore, MG fall. His initials, her plan, proof she'd pinned it, her handwriting sharp. More, $200K, Vail, 2020, $300K, Bins, 2021, her life, is ruin, tracked. Shell companies, Blue Wave Limited. Match Tom's hint, offshore tricks. Miles shook, 3 years crushed, now this, a blade in his hand. Not legal yet, provenance shaky, but hers, real. He called Tom, found something, hers bar, dim, Tom squinting at it. That's her messy seas, saw it on memos. Tom's layoff left him bitter, she's a shark, and he'd talk, if pressed. Miles kept it close, ledger locked in a drawer, his ace. He dug online, Blue Wave, came and registered, Claire's name buried in leaks, not headlines. She'd spin his fall galas, ski trips, while he pawned his life. Rage fueled him, her smirk, you're done, a lie he'd shred. March, he tailed her, bus to her Lodo condo, binoculars cheap. She glowed, new coat, heels clicking, his theft her crown. The ledger burned, dates, her greed, his frame, but he needed more. Bank ties, witnesses. He billed slow, Claire's throne high, his low, but cracking. Temp work dulled, numbers for crooks, but sharpened his hunt. Patterns, fraud, her style. She'd underestimated him, quiet Miles, thief, but he'd strike, not loud, but lethal. The studio's walls closed, his breath fogged. 3 years down, a ledger up. Claire's ruin loomed. He'd make it sing. Miles gripped the ledger like a lifeline. For years since Claire's frame-up at Harper & Stone, $500, 000 gone, his name mud. Spring 2023, he'd clawed through temp gigs, $18 an hour now, bookkeeping for a vape chain, cash steady. The ledger, Claire's handwriting, MG fall was gold, but raw. He'd refine it, strike hard. Tom's tip, she's dirty, and this, her greed mapped, lit his path. She'd crushed him. He'd crush back, slow, sure. He built a plan. Nights in his studio, ledger spread, laptop humming. Step 1. Verify, Blue Wave Limited, her shell, pinged in Panama Papers, $500,000 traced to a Cayman account, dates matching. Step 2. Witnesses, Tom, bitter, would talk. He'd find more. Step 3. Expose, FBI tip, anonymous, her career torched. He'd know lawyer funds tight, but truth didn't need cash, just proof. Claire lived big, LinkedIn boasted partner. Her condo gleamed, his theft her fuel. He'd flip it. April, he called Tom, ready to nail her? Bar, dusk, Tom nodding. She bragged, numbers bend. I'll swear it. Miles taped it, burner phone, legal gray, Tom's voice gold. He tailed her again, bus, her routine, office, gym, wine bar. She glowed, oblivious, his shadow, her doom. He dug online, ex-clients, whispers, Harper shady, one posted, anonymous. Miles messaged, no Claire. A reply, overbilled me, 2018. Threads, not ropes, but weaving. May, he hacked, basic, old CPA tricks, her public profile spilling, veil trips, Ben's pics, her life a taunt. The ledger tied it, dates, sums, her $500,000 seed blooming. He'd no smoking gun, bank records locked, but enough. Tom, the ledger, leaks. He tipped the feds check Blue Wave, let them dig, her fall public. Claire thought him broken, fired, shamed, but he'd risen, quiet, sharp. The studio's bulb buzzed, his plan tight, she'd framed him. Now he'd frame her ruin, numbers her noose. Miles gathered ammo through summer 2023, for years since Claire's frame-up at Harper and Stone, $500,000 theft, his life trashed. The ledger, CD, $500,000, MG fall, was his core. Tom's she's dirty, his spark, but he needed more. Temp gigs paid, vape chain, $20 an hour, but nights were his war. Studio dim, laptop glowing, Claire's in mapped. She'd risen partner, her LinkedIn screamed, his fall her throne. He'd topple it, piece by piece. June, he met Tom again, dive bar, $5 pitchers, Tom spilling. Claire's assistant, Jen, saw her late, your night. Quit fast, scared. Miles tracked Jen, ex-search, Denver barista now. He went coffee for dollars, her pouring. Harper, 19, he asked, casual. She froze, you Miles. Word had spread. She set me up, he said, low. Jen nodded, Claire cooked books, bragged, he's gone. I split. He taped it, burner, her shaky, yet two voices now, gold. July, he dug clients, Harper's old roster, public leaks. 1, a brewery owner, overbilled. 18, met him, park bench, dusk. Claire pushed fees, shady transfers. Fired her, didn't you? Miles scribbled, pattern, her greed pre him. The ledger clicked, $200K, veil, her life, their cash. He tailed her, bus, Lodo, her wine bar ritual, snapping pics, Ben's new bag, is ruin her shine. August, he tipped a forum, a Harper fraud. Anon replies piling. Claire's slick, lost $50,000, 20. Threads, not proof, but loud. He sync it, ledger dates, Tom's tape, Jen's words, client gripes, Claire's web, is net. No bank access. Feds could crack that, but enough for a shove. She'd framed him. You're done. Her smirk his fuel. Temp work dulled. Numbers for vape crooks, but sharpened his hunt. Shells, lies, her style. The studio stank sweat, coffee, but he grinned for years down, her fall near. Claire's throne towered. He'd shake it. Voices his hammer. Miles struck fall 2023. 5 years since Claire's frame-up at Harper and Stone. $500,000 theft, his career ash. September, he'd amassed it. Ledger with CD, MG fall, Tom's tape, Jen's she bragged, client whispers, her web, his spear. Temp gigs held, vape chain, $22 an hour, but this was his fight, studio his bunker. Claire glowed, partner, her bins purring, his ruin her crown. He'd rip it off. He built the tip, FBI online. Anon, Blue Wave Limited, Cayman, $500,000, Harper and Stone, 19. Claire Donovan, checker. Attached, ledger scans, Tom's audio, Jen shaky, she set him up, client names, breadcrumbs, not bombs, but sharp. He mailed hard copies, P.O. Box, no trace, Denver office, October 1st. Days stretched, temp work, silence, his pulse loud. Claire strutted, LinkedIn posts, leadership award, him smirking, her clock ticking. October 15th, it broke, news, Harper and Stone probe, fraud, $500,000, 19. No Claire yet, but her firm squirmed, reviewing records. Miles watched, bar TV, beer warm, his tip, their dig. Tom texted, Feds called. Swore at Gin too? They asked. Claire's shine dimmed, LinkedIn quiet, her wine bar stool empty. He checked. November. Feds raided. Harper's glass tower. Boxes hauled. News buzzing. Partner implicated. Claire's name leaked. Donovan. Suspect. Her smirk gone. Hunted now. Miles grinned. Studio cold. Victory warm. She'd framed him. You're done. Her lie is noose. Temp gigs faded. Vape boss cut hours. But he cared less. Her fall was pay. He'd no lawyer. No cash. Just grit. Numbers. Voices she'd ignored. Claire thought him broken, fired. Shamed. But he'd struck. Slow. Lethal. The Rockies loomed. His climb mirrored. Steep. One. She'd spin his ruin. Veil. Bins. Now she'd lose it. His truth her end. Miles faced Claire's in November 2023. 5 years since her frame-up at Harper and Stone. $500,000 theft. His life torched. Feds moved. Raids. Headlines. Claire Donovan. Fraud. Embezzlement. Her throne cracking. He tipped them. Ledger. Tom. Gin. His slow hunt paying off. Temp gigs waned. Vape chain cut him. But freedom loomed. December 5th, she called. New number. Voice tight. Miles. Coffee. He agreed. Diner. Dusk. Her fall is stage. She sat. Haggard. Suit wrinkled. No smirk. You did this, she hissed. Coffee untouched. He nodded. Calm. You framed me. Claire. $500,000. My name. She laughed. Bitter. Prove it. But her eyes flicked. Scared. Feds have it. Ledger. Your handwriting. Blue wave, he said. Voice steel. Tom. Gin. They talked. She paled. Lies. But he slid a photo. Her bins. Ledger's $300K circled. You lived it. I lost it. Claire leaned in. I gave you a career. Her plea weak. You stole it. He shot back and bragged. You're done. She crushed him, fired. Shamed. Her condo is ruin's fruit. Now, feds closed. Arrest imminent. News teased. Her veil trips ash. Why? She rasped. You didn't think I'd fight, he said, standing. Enjoy jail. He walked out. Her Miles. A ghost. 5 years. Her smirk. Reversed. Later, Bar TV blared. Donovan charged. $2 million fraud. 19 to 22. His $500,000 a spark. Her greed ablaze. Tom texted. She's toast. Gin too. Thanks. Miles grinned. Studio cold. Victory hot. Claire's lie. You're done. Her noose. He'd hung her with it. Temp lie faded. He'd reclaim his CPA dusted off. Firm sniffing now. She'd underestimated him. Quiet. Broken. But he'd won. Slow. Sure. The diner's neon buzzed behind. Her ruin is dawn. Claire's reckoning hit December 2023. 5 years since she framed Miles at Harper and Stone. $500,000 theft. His career ash. Feds charged her. Embezzlement. Fraud. $2 million. Her arrest splashed news. Handcuffs. No bins. Her smirk gone. Miles' tip. Ledger. Tom. Gin. Ignited it. Her empire burned. Temp gigs ended. Vape chain done. But firms called. Heard you're clear. Work. His CPA gleamed again. Offers trickled. Denver's blacklist lifting. January 2024. Trial loomed. Claire's plea. Not guilty. Her lawyer slick. But evidence stacked. Blue wave accounts. Hacked by feds. Her signatures. His frame up a thread. Miles watched court TV. Barstool. Tom testifying. She bragged. Problem solved. Gin 2. She cooked it. Clients piling. Overbilled. Drained. The ledger sealed it. MG fall. Her hand. Her doom. February. Verdict. Guilty. 12 years. Her Vail condo sold. Been seized. Her shine dust. Miles met her eyes. Sentencing. Packed room. Hers hollow. His steady. She'd crushed him. You're done. Her lie is fuel. Now he'd risen. Her fall is win. Justice. News crowed. Harper fined. Claire's name mud. He'd no gloat. Her ruin enough. His life back. Firms bid. $80K. Audits again. His studio swapped for a flat. Clean. His. Friends returned. No, you didn't. Jake toasting. Badass. Miles grinned. 5 years down. Truth up. March. He walked. Rocky sharp. Air cold. Claire's cell distant. His freedom near. She'd spin his ruin. Lavish. Loud. Now she'd rot. Quiet. Small. He'd fought. Not fists. But numbers. Her throne his. Flipped. The ledger rested. Drawer. A relic. His striker end. Miles wasn't the thief. She was. And Denver knew. His name clear. Hers ash. Miles triumphed by spring 2024. 5 years since Claire's frame up at Harper and Stone. $500,000 theft. His life trashed, flipped to victory. She'd rotted, sentenced, 12 years, her bin sold, condo foreclosed, feds peeling her $2 million fraud. His tip the spark. He'd rebuilt. CPA dusted. A firm hired him April. $90,000. Audits. Denver's skyline his again. The studio faded. New flat. Hardwood. Rockies framed. His thrift days ash. Claire's ruin is dawn. May. News slowed. Donovan's fall. Firm shame. Her smirk a memory. His name clear. Clients nodded. Heard you fought. Respect, not pity, is now. Jake toasted from ramen to this. Bar buzzing. Friends back. His story theirs. He'd met Claire's end. Diner. Her plea. You did this. His you framed me. Her mirror. She'd crushed him. You're done. Her lie is ladder. He'd climbed. Her throne dust. June. He walked. Lakefront. Breeze sharp. Ledger in a box. Tom's cheese toast. A grin. Jen texted free. Thanks. Her barista gig safe. His fighters too. Firm's bid. $95K. Rival offer. His pick. Not theirs. He chose Harper's old rival. Sweet. Starting July. His desk gleaming. No shadows. Claire's cell loomed. Her lavish life his fuel. Now hers gone. He'd no gloat. Her ruin enough. His rise pure. August. He stood. Balcony. City humming 5 years from fired. Shamed. To this. Career. Pride. Truth. She'd spin his fall veil. Galas. Now he spinners. Quiet. Strong. The ledger rested. Relic. Not chain. His strike her end. Denver's whisper. Miles won. He'd fought. Not loud. But lethal. Claire's thief. His badge. Flipped. The Rockies glowed. His climb theirs steep. Sure. His triumph hers to mourn.